Welcome to the 1 in 50 podcast from the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. I'm your host, Christine Buckley. 1 in 50 is the number of people living with an unruptured aneurysm, which is equal to 6.8 million people in the United States. A rupture occurs every 18 minutes, and tragically, half the people who rupture will die. These statistics need to change. The Foundation's goal is big but critical: to create a world free of death and disability from brain aneurysms. Let's reach those unaware of the danger, because awareness can save lives and prevent tragedy. Knowing the signs and symptoms of brain aneurysms can be the difference between life and death. All right. Welcome, everybody, back to the 1 in 50 podcast. And it's my great pleasure to say our guest today is Congresswoman Yvette Clarke from District 9 in Brooklyn, New York. So welcome, Congresswoman.
Thank you for having me, Christine. It's a pleasure being with you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And just so everyone knows, Congresswoman Clarke has been our lead sponsor of Ellie's Law that many of you are familiar with. So, Congresswoman, could you just tell me your connection to brain aneurysms?
Absolutely. In our immediate family, my sister-in-law lost her only sibling, her sister, to a brain aneurysm that caught the family by surprise. Terry was a beloved member of the family who just one day passed away while walking down.
Sorry to hear that.
Of a brain aneurysm. And so this has been in the consciousness of our family and by extension our community for decades now. So when I had the opportunity to get on board with Ellie's Law and introduce it, I thought it was critical that I do so.
Okay, thank you. And I'm really sorry for the loss in your family. So this is what did spur you on. So, why is it important for you to be the voice for this cause behind Ellie's Law? And can you talk a little bit about the progress and where Ellie's Law stands now and how the community can be more involved to support it?
Absolutely. I think that the opening up for greater awareness around brain aneurysms is very important. We introduced Ellie's Law once again in the 119th session of Congress in April. And in so doing, we are requesting that the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, which is within the Health and Human Services Agency of the federal government, be given $20 million over a period of 5 years each year, so that the research, the education and information of the public writ large can occur. Here we are in the 21st century, losing loved ones or finding crisis in our families due to aneurysms because of a lack of knowledge, a lack of research, and a lack of information. It is so critical that we find out so much more about perhaps symptoms that will occur prior to someone actually having a rupture within their bodies. Because aneurysms, we're talking about brain aneurysms here, but this is a condition that can strike because it's within our bodies, within our bloodstream, and our veins and our arteries. And so brain aneurysms mean an abrupt stop to our way of life. In many cases, it's a death that occurs. In others, it's a debilitating disorder that at any moment can result in death. And so I thought it was important that we not only pay homage to Ellie and many out there who weren't aware that they had this condition, by making sure that we make the investments at the Department of Health and Human Services to really hone in on this condition.
Yeah, no, thank you. You touched upon so many great things there. I appreciate that. And we just had our Hill Day, as you probably know, in May, and we had large number of our community there advocating for Ellie's Law in last Congress. And we have been fortunate to have it be a bipartisan effort in both the House and the
Absolutely.
Senate, which is wonderful. But what
Congressman
can
Fitzpatrick is fully on board with many other members on the other side of the aisle.
And we all know, I mean, how busy you are and everybody, in the House and the Senate are, particularly these days. There's so much going on. But we had the day we left. Last Congress, we had 65 co-sponsors on the House, and currently we have 8. So what can we recommend to our folks who follow us and are following Ellie's Law? Should they reach back out to their offices and just bring it to the
Absolutely.
forefront?
We have a list of members who previously co-sponsored this legislation, and we should make sure that we follow up with them. Let's send them our lived experiences so that they understand and can tie this condition to everyday Americans who, are going about their business and living their life, contributing to society, but live with the specter of
Yeah.
someone in our beloved community being struck with this condition
Yeah.
that again can result in the death of a loved one. And
Right.
so we want to ask those who have the knowledge, have the lived experiences, to share their stories. That's an important part of this. And I think we can all relate to the fact that it can be any one of us at any given time that can become the victim of an aneurysm.
Yeah, absolutely. You've noted and how important, awareness is and the education and early detection and getting ahead of this, but also, the disease disproportionately impacts Blacks and Hispanics. So how can this be better addressed?
Yeah, we have been focused for some time on health disparities. I happen to serve on the Committee of Jurisdiction in the House of Representatives, the Energy and Commerce Committee. And it's a constant, we have to be persistent
Right.
because there are so many ways in which our healthcare infrastructure is antiquated, our viewing of how we treat conditions, how we do research into these conditions are very antiquated, that it is worth it for us as a society to invest in the research so that the expense of caring for loved ones with these conditions don't outweigh the cost of research that can help us to manage these conditions, come up with new treatments and therapies for those who may be struck with these with these conditions. It's critical. And so I think that for communities of color, we have to constantly raise our voices. Again, these are our neighbors, these are our friends, these are our co-workers, these are the people who worship with us.
Right.
We need to make sure that we are being our sisters and brothers keeper.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how important is it for Congress to keep the conversation going with other federal agencies like the CDC, NIH, and HHS to raise awareness on this and to help advance the research funding?
Well, especially during a time where so much change is taking place in our federal government. This is a really important time for us to make sure that this is prioritized because we don't know at the end of the day where the emphasis will be placed with respect to the various ways that the HHS will be reconfigured. And so it is critical that we continue to advocate for the National Institute of Neurological Disorder and Stroke. Because without our advocacy, we could very much well find ourselves, subordinated to other conditions, within the agency. And we want to make sure that this is a priority for HHS and by extension for this administration.
Yeah, that would be amazing to keep that push going and, just try to connect with as many people
We
as we
have to be
can.
persistent. We must be persistent and we will be victorious. As
That's what I like
long as
to
we
hear. That's what I like
absolutely.
to hear.
Well, I'm an eternal optimist.
All
And
right,
so
that's
in the
good.
midst of the storm, I'm looking for the victory.
Yeah, no, I love it because I mean, there's 1 in 50 people walking around with an unruptured, 30,000 people a year rupture, and half those people die. And currently, the federal government is funding just about $3 per person per year affected, which is just under $20 million a year. So why do you think it is still underfunded when, we've had conversations, particularly on Hill Day when everybody's meeting and the feedback is, why is it so much less? Like, what is it going to take to get it to be similar to other diseases with the same incidence?
It's unfortunate. I think that, there's so many competing interests, and there need not be. We have the ability within our society to really address in a very holistic way all of the conditions that impact the brain, that impact our neurological systems. We just have to determine that this is a priority for us. And like many other conditions that are constantly, given the type of support that we would expect, we need to make sure that our advocacy is just as potent in,
Right.
in striking a chord with those in the right places and right spaces. We need to make sure our foundations are working through their board members and
Yeah.
affiliate organizations, and it's amassing the power and the influence
Yeah.
that makes the difference. Unfortunately, at the end of the day,
No, I
we
know.
and we have the ability to do so. We just have to put a plan of action in play and
Yep.
stick to it.
Great. And I'm not sure if you know, but the Brain Aneurysm Foundation is the largest private funder of brain aneurysm research. We gave out $640,000 last year to 15 projects. And currently we just had 88 applicants. And these are the folks that are, on the ground and get the money from us, either $25,000 or $50,000 to get the data to move on to NIH, American Heart and American Stroke. So, there is so much good research being done, and, it does feel good to see all these applications coming in. But, we do encourage everyone who applies to us to then go on to apply to NIH as well, so that they do know that there are people out there doing the work and they need the funding, to progress for this disease. And like we always say, we want to keep families and communities together. And it's not the aneurysm itself that's horrible, it's that rupture. And that brings me
Absolutely.
back to early detection and screening. So how do you think, another thing that we're very interested in is currently the medical community says that there has to be 2 or more people in the family impacted before insurance will cover a screen for the rest of the family. And, again, through different conversations, people don't understand that. If there's one member, why would you wait for that second instance? Because a scan, costs X amount of money, but, the loss of a life or somebody that then is disabled and never go back to work. So I think we want to look more into screening people who are at risk, which are women more than men, smokers for sure. That's a big problem. People with high blood pressure, and then people who do have it run in family. So, what do you think about that, trying to change the screening
I
protocols?
absolutely agree that we should change the screening protocols, and perhaps it should be incorporated in some of the screenings that we do routinely around
Yeah.
brain scans and things of that nature, so that we're maximizing on the use of technologies and entry points for
Right.
individuals to learn about brain health around all manner of impact to our neurological systems. And I think that, unfortunately, the regulations as currently constructed are obsolete. We
Yeah.
know so much more can be prevented with the use of technology today, that we should move this into the 21st century and
Yeah.
require that individuals get a comprehensive view to what is happening in their bodies, particularly when it comes to the brain and certainly to our neurological systems, which unfortunately doesn't tend to occur unless there is an incident. We need to be preventative, and that's what we're
Exactly.
focused on most of all.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some progress being made with AI being able to detect aneurysms that sometimes the human eye is not able to pick up. And also some of the researchers are making some good progress on identifying a blood-based biomarker. So then some could have a blood test versus a scan, which would obviously be easier and cheaper. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that at some point, not too far down the road, that becomes the case. And then maybe, would certainly be easier for those at risk and family members to be tested. So what
Absolutely.
advances would you like?
And that's why I really believe that the investment in research is so very important,
Mhm.
because there are other methodologies, and it will become more and more cost effective the more research we do.
So what advances or changes would you like to see? Would you like to see in like 5 years from now? If
Yeah,
there was
well,
like one
I
big
think
change.
we discussed a lot of that in our conversation today. One, I want to see more heightened awareness in communities of color.
Yeah.
As you've indicated, there, hypertension, stroke are, we're living with these diseases each and every day from generation to generation. And all of that at the end of the day, is an indicator that you may be at risk of aneurysm. And so, if we can get the public, if we can get the medical establishment to take that knowledge that we have
Mhm.
and really create an ecosystem around it that enables those within the community who may not have the knowledge of it,
Right.
to educate them about it as part of a routine health check. Then
Yeah.
we're doing the job we need to do. It's just unfortunately people just aren't aware.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And I always tell people, we want it to be as noticeable, or the awareness and education to be the same as heart attack and stroke, because people know that. And that's what this disease has to be, both in the medical community and just the public. And we fortunately just collaborated with the American Stroke Association for a mixed fact sheet that discusses ischemic and hemorrhagic stroke at the same time. So they're going to share that information about brain aneurysms when there are conferences, and then we'll have it as well. So I think that's definitely a great partnership in raising awareness. And, one of the terrible things here when we deal with families and survivors whose lives are forever changed is that it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be that way. If you have an aneurysm, the treatments are amazing and they keep getting better. So it's something that's very treatable. But if you don't know that you have it, if you don't know the signs and symptoms, and if you can't get that scanned, you can't be treated. So that's why it's amazing to have the opportunity to speak with you on this podcast and for you to share your involvement and your connection, because getting the word out from different people and different perspectives is just how we touch people in different ways. So I just want to thank you, Congresswoman, so much for your constant support, for your time and sharing with us. Are there any closing words that you'd like to say?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for having me on your podcast today. As you rightly said, 1 in 50.
Yeah.
We walk around in the United States of America, and we can look to our left and look to our right. And,
Yeah.
in New York, we ride subway cars. Someone in that subway car will be the next
Absolutely.
victim, unfortunately. So we need to roll up our sleeves. We need to continue our advocacy. I want to thank the Brain Aneurysm Foundation for the hard work and dedication and commitment to making this Ellie's Law a reality, and encourage those who have an opportunity to view and hear this podcast uh, to join us in this march forward to victory.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate it. Good luck with everything that you have to deal with on a daily basis. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me.